Order is restored in Jays land as the Toronto Blue Jays complete the sweep of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the pitching staff is back in tune. So we'll break that down and much more in this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. And if you were worried after the Boston series, no need to be worried anymore because the Jays just won 3 in a row against a very hot Pittsburgh Pirates team. Although not the best, not the most talented team, they took care of business and they did what they had to do at PNC Park. But it was just an overall great weekend of baseball for the boys. And hopefully they can get on a roll here going into Philadelphia.
Yeah, a much needed a sweep. And coming into the series, you just want them to win it, at least get on track. But a sweep is something that all Jays fans will certainly take, and one that we needed in a very competitive schedule that we're going to have upcoming. Before we get into the video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're very close to 7,000. It would mean the world. And thank you for your support. And Peter, let's get into the first topic here. And the Jays, like you said, they're back on track now. We have an off day tomorrow. Very important to get the last win before an off day. Have a good flight home. And what a day for the Toronto Blue Jays. And overall, just a very, very impressive series, and one that puts a smile on many Jays fans after the really, really poor sweep.
Right, and we've been very adamant that it's a simple formula to win a baseball game. You pitch well, you play good defense, and you give yourself a chance in those 9 innings, and that's what the Blue Jays did. Their offense, they started off hot, and each and every game they put up runs early in the early innings, but I can't say they pounded the Pittsburgh Pirates pitching. They had their innings here and there, but it wasn't like those 16-2 blowouts or 20-run performances that we've seen in the past from the Blue Jays. They pitched well, they got length from their starters, and the bullpen took care of business. The offense, timely runs, timely hits, and that's all you can ask for. The big problem early on in the year was hitting with runners in scoring position, and the Jays have steadily progressed to the average, and they're looking like the team that we thought they were going to be. Hopefully they can just keep it going. We don't want to see these fluctuations. We don't want to see 5 losses in a row, then 5 wins in a row. We want to see positive baseball and just overall winning baseball, and that's what the Blue Jays played in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's something we talk about a lot. Just win the series and you'll be good. And obviously, we got swept in Boston, but a very good game. And I'll touch on some of the hitters here. We have we'll touch on a couple other players in depth there in a minute, but George Springer went 1 for 5, Bo Bichette 2 for 5, and Dalton Varsho. And we're going to touch on him now. We'll touch on him for a minute or two here. But Peter, what a game out of Dalton Varsho today. And like you said, I'm going to keep giving you credit for it. He's been unbelievable. You called that he was going to heat up. Obviously, he made his adjustment, but he has just been spectacular the past few games, even literally the past week, and his defense is phenomenal. What did you see out of him today? And I'll show you the home run here in a minute, but what a game out of Dalton Varsho.
This is the player that the Jays went out and acquired from the Arizona Diamondbacks. A power hitting, slick fielding outfielder, and he's doing much more than he has been early on in the season. He's a great base runner, great fielder. That stuff doesn't slump, and that's the great thing about Dalton Varsho. So even if he's hitting 0 at the plate, he's still a pretty valuable player just because of the defense and the base running and just the stolen base ability that he does provide to the team. But when he's hitting like this, when he's hitting it into the Allegheny River or whatever it's called
Out
in
of the
Pittsburgh,
ballpark.
I mean, there's only been 65 in history, if I'm not mistaken. So he's one of them, and he's got some major light tower power when he's clicking at the plate. It was one simple adjustment, just him going back to the hitter that he's always been, a pull hitter who hits the ball in the air, and that's what makes him successful. He's, like I said many times, he's not going to be a 300 hitter. We got a little bit spoiled early on in the year because he was hitting the ball to all fields and just playing like a complete hitter, but that's not who he is. He's a power hitter, a bit of an all or nothing approach, but that's okay because he contributes in so many other ways. And the guy that I've really been impressed with is Brandon Belt, who I want to touch on some more here.
Yeah, we'll touch on him in a minute as well. But someone I also want to quickly touch on is Whit Merrifield, who I also have a clip for. And what a game out of Whit Merrifield. And man, I was looking back at some tweets today, and that trade for Whit Merrifield ended up being a very weird one at the time. We didn't really know what was happening. It was right at the end of the deadline, but it ended up being one of the steals of last year's deadline. You can see here, got a hanging curveball, absolutely crushes it to put them up 4-0 in the 3rd inning to get them started on the lead. And before we touch on Brandon Bell, Peter, I'll just let you quickly touch on Whit Merrifield here.
He's definitely separated himself and he's established himself as the everyday second baseman. He's going to get his off days every now and then just because he is 34 years old, and ultimately you want to keep him fresh for a long playoff run, and that's the goal that the Blue Jays have. So you don't want to run him into the ground, but he is going to be a free agent after this year. So I'll use a Moneyball reference when Billy Bean went up to the old veteran outfielder and said, "I want to squeeze every last ounce of baseball that you have left in you." And that's what the Blue Jays are doing with Whit Merrifield. Although I do think he's still got a couple years left with high production in the league, but you don't know. His future with the Jays is uncertain past this season. So you want to get the most out of him, and you want him to contribute in the most ways possible. He's been up in the order, he's been down in the order, and wherever you put him, he's been doing a great job and playing a really serviceable second base as well.
Yeah, very, very good, and someone that we're going to have to just get in the lineup every single day, which is something we've described. But let's get into Brandon Belt now. He's been absolutely on fire. We can touch on him for a minute before we touch on the great pitching. And I don't know what the adjustment he made was, if there was one, or maybe it's all just evening out after a short spring training. But what a game out of him. You can see there he went 3 for 4 with a walk, and he could have had a couple hits there that were home runs. One specifically was literally 1 foot away from clearing the I guess whatever the fence was above it, but above the wall. What were your thoughts on Brandon Belt? If he's going to get hot like he is right now, and he needs to stay hot because he had a game in a series like this in New York, and then he went back to being pretty bad. But if he can stay hot, then wow, this team is something else, because this is all being done the past 2 games without, of course, Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Yeah, we had a video a couple of days ago highlighting the issue with Brandon Belt, and he was brought here to hit, and that's all he's been brought here for. He's not here for his gold glove defense. He's definitely not here for his base running. He's here to pound that baseball and be in the lineup every day as the designated hitter against right-handed pitching. And if he's hitting like this, obviously it's not sustainable to go 3 for 4 every game, but things do even out. And we did acknowledge in that video that even though there was a problem and he looked lost out there at the plate, the leash is going to be a little bit longer for a 34-year-old who's won a couple of World Series and who's been a very valuable player in this league for a long time. So you got to give him that rope and you got to let him figure it out. And now's the time. It's early in the season. You want him to get those at-bats, and if the same thing were to keep happening in 2 months from now, that's when you cut ties. But you got to let him figure it out, and thankfully he's starting to do that. He looks a lot more locked in at the plate. He's spitting on those borderline pitches, and he's pulling the ball in the air, hitting for a lot of power. And like you said, could have had that home run as well. If it was hit maybe a foot to the left,
Yep.
it would have hit that yellow tape. And of course, he hit it at the highest part of that fence. It's been that kind of season for Brandon Belt, but things do iron themselves out. And if he can be a good bat in that 5 or 6 spot wherever he is, then that's just added bonus for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, and like Joe Siddle touched on, it's something that's obvious. His hands are starting to get up to speed. He's swinging the ball faster. He's getting to some of the higher pitches that he was just swinging right through before. So like you said, if he can get hot, then it adds another layer to the offense, because he's shown that he could be a really amazing hitter in the past, and like you said, did not bring him for defense whatsoever. So let's hope that he can, continue to hit well, and it's something that'll be very important if Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s injury lingers throughout the season. But let's touch on the pitching now, which the pitching order is restored. Very good outing from the majority of the pitching staff today, and we'll focus on Yusei Kikuchi here. What'd you see out of him, Peter? He's been really, really good so far throughout the season. Can't really complain about him as our number 5 starter. He's been dominant. And what'd you see out of him today as he went 6 1/3, giving up 4 hits and 3 strikeouts?
Yeah, the command wasn't
Nope.
perfect, and it hasn't been all
Nope.
season. He's been scattered all over the zone, and when he misses pretty badly. But he's a 5th starter, and at the end of the day, that's what we got to remember. He's not going to be an ace. He's not going to have a sub-2 ERA. He's not going to strike out 12 guys each and every outing, but he's got to give you a chance to win, and that's what he's done every time he's been out there. He gives you a chance to win. He's been pitching deep into ball games, and that was a big problem for him last season. He wasn't able to do that. He was taxing the bullpen every 5th day, and that's not sustainable to winning and getting through a regular season. So I've liked what I've seen out of him. Is the sub 3.5 ERA sustainable? I'm not quite sure. I doubt it. But you can't argue with the results that he's getting right now. I'd like to see a lot less 3 ball counts. I'd like to see some less hard hit contact. But hey, He's getting the job done, and he's your fifth starter, and you can't complain with the production that you're getting out of him.
Yeah, and if we can, it's an interesting comparison I'm going to throw out, but if we can have him have a year like Steven Matz did in 2021, I think it was like a 3.4 ERA, then that would be
That'd be
very, very
perfect.
serviceable and something that Matz battled a lot with his control, and it's kind of not similar pitchers necessarily, but maybe a similar situation. So that would be a very, very a good deal for him. But yeah, phenomenal game out of Kikuchi, especially when he's doesn't have his best stuff, and he didn't have his best stuff today. At least his command, he battled to give us some great innings. Jimmy Garcia struggled a little bit, but huge shout out to Jordan Romano, who came in a 5-1 game, bases loaded, and got a strikeout and a pop out to end that inning. And we got to save him as well as Nate Pearson came on, and he ended up completing the inning there. 1 inning, 1 hit, and 1 strikeout. But phenomenal to Nate Pearson. He's been great. But anything else you want to touch on before we look ahead to Monday's game or Tuesday's game?
Yeah, that ninth inning, that top of the ninth inning was a lot of fun, and it was great to witness as a Blue Jay fan. But I just wish Jordan Romano were to go back out there for that ninth inning because I have him on my fantasy team, and I needed some more strikeouts. But it's all right. I'll take the 10-1 win and probably a loss in fantasy this week. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it would have gave Jordan Romano a save, but ultimately it was the right call for a couple of reasons. Obviously, to give Nate Pearson some run, and of course to save Romano's arm, who has been taxed a lot recently. But quick note: Nate Pearson looks very, very good, and hopefully he stays up
Yes.
on the major league team. But quick look ahead for tomorrow before we wrap up. Tomorrow's an off day. We will have a video for you, a news video, and then Tuesday we play against the Philadelphia Phillies with Kevin Gossman against Nola. Peter, any quick thoughts before we wrap up the video? It's going to be a fun next couple of days.
Yeah, so it's going to be Manoah and Nola on Tuesday, and then Gosman and Zach Wheeler on Wednesday. So this is a good test, a quick 2-game series against a Phillies team that just got Bryce Harper back. So it's no cakewalk for Alek Manoah and Kevin Gosman. They're going to have to pitch their butts off, and the Blue Jays are going to have to play their butts off because this is going to be a similar to a kind of a wild card series type format. Quick 2 games in a row. You gotta win that, and then you're off to the next one.
Yeah, I agree, and hopefully we can at least split, but hopefully get the win. And the bottom of the rotation did their job with Barrios and Kikuchi, so hopefully the top takes it over. But that'll wrap it up. We will have a video for you tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see you then.
Thanks.